Welcome everybody to another episode of the FACEIT Profiles. This I'm introducing. Sorry guys, we don't need him, you got me. I'm ZSX, I will be your FACEIT profile for today, also known as Dan Sanders. I would also like to introduce you to Thunder and Lightning. We are the Storm. So we all know you are a professional gamer and you have been a player who's played Quake Live at a high level for quite some time. So what else is there in your life?
Well, I played casually a number of other games, just on the side, nothing serious like Quake. But professionally, I finished my studies at university recently. I'm a personal trainer, and as many people know, I'm also a rugby player, if you can't really tell that as well. I had a girlfriend for 5 years and just loving my life, you know.
So to me, you seem like a very laid-back kind of guy, very nice to talk to hang out with. But how would you describe your personality?
You flatter me, actually. I like to be known as quite a funny guy. I get a little bit modest, but fun-loving, and I'm quite an angry person. I do get raged a lot, but yeah, I just like to hang out and just be fun, really.
So you were someone who played rugby at a professional level, a very high level, and can you tell us a little bit more about that, like the team you played for, and really, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know anything about rugby, so enlighten them.
Well, basically rugby is a contact sport, so it's very intense and physical. The lifestyle is not what you would imagine. It's not a football lifestyle. We didn't get paid an awful lot, and training was seriously hard. I did it whilst being at university as well, so I had to balance my workload, my training and all that. But yeah, it's just literally getting smashed about for a few hours a day and then hitting the gym and then going and passing out. So pretty boring.
Nice. And I mean, with your rugby career, you said to me you're Premiership level, and that's no joke at all. That's pretty hardcore. You play for like London Wasps. So what was your kind of experience being in such a team?
It's really intense, and it's really satisfying at the same time. I mean, to know that I did make it to the highest level, but the commitment and everything that goes with it is just really intense, that you've always got to be on top of your game, and even if you don't feel like it, you've got to be there and show your enthusiasm and always looking to improve in however you can. That's like regular meetings outside of training to see where you can improve. Literally everything in your life is focused on that one particular thing, so it does take its toll.
So for maybe those who know a little bit more about rugby, what was your position, or does it work that way even?
Yeah, well it does. I mean, I was what's known as the centre in rugby, so I was out in the back. I was meant to be one of the quicker people, the more skillful people. I mean, I don't think you'd believe it looking at me being a bit of a lump, but yeah, I could shift a little bit, run with the ball. My role incorporated a little bit of everything, so I was pretty much centre of the pitch, so you know, everything went through me.
So what was the hardest kind of challenge being this guy? Like, where are the pressures of your position? Why did your team need to rely on you? What do they need to rely on you for?
Well, out in rugby, I guess you would call me like a second playmaker in attack, so I had to be able to kick and run and make the right decisions like pretty much all the time. But then also being in that particular position, it was very heavy in the defense as well, so I was always making a lot of tackles and hitting rucks and trying to steal the ball, so the role was very rounded, seeing you had to do quite a lot in attack and defense, so that's why it's quite a particular position.
So being a very high level rugby player, you actually you informed me that you were injured, you received an injury. Would you like to tell people like how that injury happened and how it affected you?
Yeah, well unfortunately I got a little bit unlucky. It was just a regular training session before my official debut. A couple of days before I was just stepping across somebody and they took my knee out and I wasn't able to walk for a few days. I was actually continued to play for the rest of the year with the injury until it just got too bad. I had it scanned and stuff, and they realised I had torn my cartilage and virtually had no cartilage in my knee. And then after a number of operations and a couple of years out playing on and off, I just had to take a step back and get it fully fixed.
So being someone who is heavily into sports and fitness from the sake of professionally and enjoyment, of course it's very paramount to being very fit, as I'm sure everyone can tell, but looking at you for your rugby performance. But how do you think this level of fitness helps gaming, or do you think it even impacts gaming at all?
I really do believe that like regular exercise and like weight training, whatever, it affects your entire life. It makes you happier, more confident, and that impacts on your play as well. I mean, just on a simple level, I'm a believer in that if when you do weights and you can control your muscles better, it will impact on, for example, your mouse movements, because you'll have more control over your arm. And like, I guess I'm known for having a strong aim, and I guess I would incorporate a little bit of that thanks to my regular training. But like, there's no harm in being happier and confident in the rest of your life, and that's always going to make you better within the game itself. So I would, anyone that wants to improve, I would definitely say exercise will help you.
So you're definitely someone who always rises to a challenge, I would say, being such high level in so many different things. And what would you say is maybe the most challenging thing, or like the biggest hurdle you've experienced in your life, either if it relates to esports, sports, or maybe not?
Within esports, I mean, joining a professional team and going to LANs and whatnot, I guess literally my first LAN was the biggest hurdle I've ever faced, going up against the eventual winner. Cypher was in my group. I had Kilson and Lincoln, so I had 3 great players. And going there, not really having ever been to a LAN, either casual or professional, and being dumped into the ESL studio was really quite daunting. And I performed okay. I was happy with myself, and I mean, I don't think you can get any bigger than that, than playing against Cypher on top of his game. So he did tear me apart. So
being someone who actually, because you described to me, you kind of only started to take Quake Live truly serious, or Quake truly seriously, when you moved into Quake Live. So that kind of classes you as a more new school player, technically, even though you were maybe around a bit before that. So what were your methods of training and maybe catching up? How did you improve, and how did you focus on that area of your game to beat players like Cypher?
Well, I mean, jumping into Quake Live, I'd never even dueled before, maybe once or twice during my Quake 3 days. So I had really very little concept, only from watching the streams and the GTV and stuff like that, of what dueling was about. Just because I had strong aim and good dodging ability, I was able to learn the maps and participate at a reasonably high level at the time. When I found that I was beating some good players, I was a bit of a DM6 hoe. I never really changed maps. I just abused the DM6 and the lightning gun. But as I found, I entered a few tournaments and got to the final in a couple of the early ones. I realized I was actually quite good at dueling, so I just focused a bit more on learning how to time and positioning, and just watching other players to see how to improve. I mean, like you said, I'm ultra competitive, so whatever I do, I want to progress in it. So I spent a little bit of time working out my weaknesses and trying to improve on that, and literally just played and enjoyed it at the same time.
So then, how would you describe your play style if you could just put it into one sentence?
Angry. I get very angry when I play. I'm aggressive. I like to take risks, and my main priority whenever I'm playing is to deal damage. And for me, items are secondary, and therefore positioning and aggressiveness is my 2 key characteristics.
So, leading on from that, how would you describe your strengths and your weaknesses in your game?
Yeah, I'm quite aim dependent. I've always had a fairly strong aim, so I tend to rely on that. When that's not working, then I do fall behind a bit. But when I'm really on form and participating against the top players, and I'm able to focus, I do feel I have a reasonably strong defensive game. I have an all-round skill set with dodging and all the weapons. I feel I have fairly decent rockets, LG rail, and therefore combining that with my positioning and my timing when I can think straight, I have a fairly solid game, and I'm able to push quite effectively. So matching that with my defense, it's just really balancing the 2 and keeping my head in situations.
So is there a player that when you were like trying to get really, really good, that you'd like watch that player and you're just amazed, and it's just this one player that was everything for you, that you looked up to, that you watched the demos of? Was there a player like that for you?
Well, in the Quake 3 days, I did like to take an interest in the scene, and at the time I used to look up to Fox when I was a bit younger. I just thought his playstyle was really fun to watch. He had a really great all-round game. But then when I started to take it seriously in Quake Live, it would probably definitely be Cypher. I mean, everyone's going to have 1 or 2 players, and I'm guessing like most people Cypher would be up there. I just really admired his style, his flair as well, and I felt I could model my game on him, having a fairly similar set of skills in positioning and aim. So, but for me, he was the ultimate.
So we saw that you definitely didn't take from Cypher the Russian style of playing with the keyboard on the desk and the mouse on the lap and so on, or rather the other way around. I just mixed it up. But you play quite differently. Would you like to tell people how it works for you, your style of play?
Yeah, I don't really know how it works, and I've never really bothered to change it. I mean, every other game I play, I always use the standard setup, the WASD and the mouse and on the arm on the table, whatever. But when it comes to Quake, I don't have my arm across. It really derives from the fact that I started when I was about 10 or 11, and the default within Quake was arrows. And I played on a really small setup, so I had my keyboard pushed to the side, just dumped like that, and started playing a little bit spasticated, but and I just stuck with it. And I think it works to my advantage that I do have a fairly weird setup, because it makes my dodging slightly different to other players, and therefore, if people haven't played me a lot, they don't really understand how I dodge, and therefore I do find my dodge can be quite good in some situations.
Did you ever try to move to any other setups, or?
Yeah, I have messed around with arms on the table using WSD. I mean, even messing around just before this interview, I was playing with that normal setup. So I can do it, but whenever it works for sometimes, and then whenever I get frustrated, I just always revert back to the norm, and that's what I feel comfortable with, and it just works, so it's good for me.
So what kind of mouse-Mac keyboard combination do you like to go with? I know a lot of people are always interested to figure out what players use.
My traditional was the MS 3.0, the old school Microsoft mouse, and a Razer Goliathus. They were my two that pretty much brought me for the last few years. I've messed around with loads and loads of mice and mouse mats as well. At the minute, I'm using a PureTrack because my Goliathus feels like mud, so I've swapped to a PureTrack that I had somewhere, and yeah, I'm still using the MS 3.0. I mean, I messed around with the G9X recently and stuff like that, and I find that I'll have periods if I swap and I'm playing absolutely amazing, but as soon as I lose a match, I'll just switch right back into my old stuff because I just get angry and think, yeah, that works. So, I mean, just the only advice I could say is find something you enjoy and try not to mess around too much.
So what would you describe as your most memorable moment in sports and esports?
My most memorable moment in my sporting career would probably be playing for England juniors, so under 16s, 18s and 20s. I mean, those experiences were pretty amazing. And esports, it would be my first ever participation at DreamHack. I just felt that LAN event was spectacular. And I mean, even if you can't compete, if you're not qualifying, I would recommend just going to DreamHack. It's pretty surreal.